Okay, last week you planned what you want to make, and I've come up with a plan here to make a cylindrical cup or a vase with some tree decorations. Today, though, you are going to be focusing on the procedures with the new materials that we're getting out, your jobs, and also how to work with this new medium, clay. So, this is clay. When I give it to you, it'll be a fresh piece, just like this, straight from the company. You learned that clay is dug from out of the ground, so they did some processing to it, but this is fresh clay from the company, and it's ready to be shaped. When it's wet, it's plastic. So that means we can make it into any shape we want. And to start off with, we are going to make a base. So I need to think about how big I want my aspen vase to be. That's the kind of trees I'm making mine. So, and I think I want it to be a good size, maybe like a coffee cup size. So I need to make this clay, squeeze it together, and I'm working on a canvas mat. You guys, I have mine still folded into fourths. You can unfold yours so that you have more work area, or you can keep yours smaller. It's up to you. I'll go ahead and open it up. And the first thing that I want to make here is a sphere. This is going to be the base of my coil constructed pottery. So what I'm doing is I'm rolling this in my hands, turning it and rolling it. I want to make the bottom of my piece of pottery. And so now I have a good sphere, okay, or ball shape. And now what I'm going to do is flatten it a little bit, flip it over, flatten it a little bit, and then roll the edges, flatten, flip, flatten, roll the edges, flatten it out. I keep doing this until I get a good base, and I'll show you. I'll keep flattening this, flip, flatten, and roll. You don't want it to be too thick because you don't want it to be too bulky, but you don't want it to be too thin either because you don't want it to be too fragile. So I feel like I'm getting this to the right, and I'm rolling the edges because I want it to be consistent. I don't want it to get really skinny at the edges. So this looks one roll, one more flatten, one more flip, and a roll to make sure it's nice and round. Okay, so now I have a nice round base. This will be the bottom of my pottery. Let me show you when it's finished, just so you can have a reference. So this is a little bit bigger than the one that I made last year, but what I'm making is the bottom. You can't see, but there was a bottom here. You can see, you can see there's a bottom, but that was just a flat, like a coin-shaped piece. Okay, so that's what I have here. That's going to be the bottom of your pottery, and this will be different depending on how big you want your final piece. But this is going to be good for the size that I want. And this is the clay that I have remaining. When you have clay separated like this, you have to do what's called wedging your clay, and we didn't have to do it when it first came from the company because they already wedged it all for us. But now that we have two pieces that we are putting together, we need to wedge them. And I don't think this is enough for me to make a coil, so we have a clay bag where you can get more clay when you need it, and that definitely needs to be wedged. So, and there's two bags. One of the clay bags has a frowny face and it says too dry, and then one has a smiley face and says good. And actually we'll talk more about that next week, but you want to get from the good smiley face bag. Then I press this.
The team meeting this afternoon will be moved to the conference room because our tables from the staff development room are now in the cafeteria. And at the league floor, each club is in the STEM lab, so we'll be going to the conference room. Thanks.
What I'm doing, guys, and I'll talk to you more about those bags later, I am wedging this clay. So I'm pressing down to press all the air out of the clay. Because if you have any air pockets inside there, you need it to be all one solid block. I guess I could press these two together, but since I've already finished wedging this, I'm just going to wedge this. If you had any air pockets inside the clay, when it fires, those would crack your pottery apart. So you have to be careful that it's all wedged. Everything is pressed together. There's no air inside any of that where the two met. You know, where those folded over, and I can zoom in a little bit too here. Where those folded over, there's air inside where those pieces, and so you press it to squish all the air out. Now I'm ready to make a coil. And to roll a coil, actually I'm going to use about half of this. To roll a coil, you can first squeeze it into a coil-ish shape. Then you're going to roll it, and I find that the easiest way is to roll in one direction and spread my fingers out as I go, because you want it to be an even coil. You want it to be the same width all along. And keep rolling. And again, you don't want this to be too thick, but you don't want it to be too thin, just like your base. Let me show you this more carefully. As I roll, I'm spreading my fingers out, and that helps to spread it longer, and as it gets longer, it gets thinner. And I still need to go thinner. I want to try to get one way around the circumference of my base with my first coil, and that will be a good goal for today. It looks like I have a little extra there. Okay, so I'm just going to twist that off, and that is a great coil that I can attach to that base next week, which will be our next lesson. So if you get today a coil made and a base made, you'll be doing great. If you have any extra clay left over, I want you to put it, even though it's not too dry, since it's been used, it needs to be reconditioned. I want you to put it in the bag that's labeled with the frowny face for too dry. If we needed to get more clay, you would have gotten it from the good bag, and I'll take it, I'll treat this clay and make it so it'll be ready to go back into the good bag. So I'll be putting all of this in the too dry bag. The only thing that you need to save today for next week is the pieces that you have made, your coil and your base. If you didn't get a coil made and you just got a base made, then just save the base and you can get more clay and make a coil next week. Now, clay is soft when it's wet, but when it dries it becomes hard. We do not want these to dry until we're totally finished, and we've only just begun, so we're not ready for them to dry. This is when it's dry. So we need to bag them up so no air can get to them. And I'm going to give each of you a bag, and here's my advice for bagging it up. You take your pottery, put it in the bottom of your bag, okay? And I call this the twist and tuck method. First you get all the air out. So I've got the bag here. Got all the air out. My pottery's in here. Then I twist. You don't need to tie any knots. We're doing a twist and tuck method. This is the best way to keep your pottery safe. So I've twisted this, and then I tuck it under. That's the tuck. So we did a twist and a tuck. And the tuck, because you set your pottery on top of there, holds everything together. Okay. Now, if you're concerned about that not being secure enough, we are going to use tape because we have to label these. There's no way to know whose this is. So before you put it on your cart, you will create a sticker with your name. So you'll put your name on a piece of tape and you'll put it on your bag. And if you want to, if you weren't happy with the tuck method, I've seen people do this, and you can tape that closed and you can even still tuck it like that. So now it's super secure. Okay, no air's going to get in there and dry my pottery out. I'll be ready to get it next week and show you the next step. So today, good luck. I hope that you are successful at making a base and a coil if you have time. Really though, the focus for the first day is all these procedures. There's lots of new jobs and lots of new things to learn about those jobs in this new material, clay.